Hello, I'm Dr. Adrien Hannus from the Anthropology Department at Augustana College. This evening's piece will be on primitive art, or the tribal art of the peoples of New Guinea. These pieces are collected along the length of the Sepik River, a river that runs in the northern part of the island of New Guinea. It's about 700 miles in length, and along that river there exists one of the most prolific art areas in the world. We look at the art of the non-Western groups as the oceanic area in its broadest extent, West Central Africa, and then the New World Northwest Coast in British Columbia. Out of those art areas, tremendous products come forth. However, in the case of New Guinea, it may be one of the areas of the most intensity in the production of art pieces. Something that we should consider in understanding the art of these regions of the world is that these pre-state non-Western cultures conceptualized the world, the cosmology of the people was such that the entire world was imbued with spirit essence. The trees, the rocks, the soil, the sky, the clouds, all of the vegetation that existed, and all of the animals, everything contained a powerful spirit essence, so that as one went through one's day-to-day activities, one needed to be very conscious of the relationship between the world of the spirits and the world of the living, the world of the profane and the world of the sacred. It was populated by spirits that could either be benevolent or malevolent, and from that perspective, it was incumbent on the people, as they went through their day-to-day lifeways, to not create disequilibriums in this world that was cosmologically populated by these powerful spirits. There were a number of major events in the lifeway of the people that were celebrated specifically by major ceremonies and by the additional output of art products. Those would be births, marriages, deaths, and then the celebration on yearly or perhaps in some cases multi-year major ceremonies conducted in the villages. These were people in New Guinea who were farming people. Their main crops were tubers, yams, sweet potatoes, and then they augmented those diets, which were principally vegetal diets, with other forms of vegetation. They hunted some animals of the forest, and they also, in the historic period, kept pigs. And so those were the component parts of the ceremonies. The initiated men who represented the different clan groups, the kinship groups that were in the different villages, were the ones that produced the art. The art was produced in the center, which was called the men's house, or the House Tamaran. The backdrop behind me here is a facsimile facade, just so that as visitors enter this exhibit, they get a sense that they're moving from the world of the regular day-to-day walk-away circumstance into the world of the sacred. The carvings, like I say, were accomplished completely by the initiated men. Women and children were not allowed to see the carvings. I'd call to everyone's attention as well that the gables of the men's huts were adorned either with pieces like this bark painted shield structure, again conveying an ancestor image, or also included frequently these large ancestor masks on the men's huts. The men's hut themselves were filled with art since it was being produced in those settings. And again, it was a situation where the women and children could not see these pieces as they were being produced because they contained incredible levels of spirit essence. The pieces then would be brought out of the men's hut during the very ceremonial times that were being celebrated by the people. One of the images that is a repetitive image in the various cultures of New Guinea is the image of the bird and the snake. There's a deep time mythological story that is embraced by the people of New Guinea, that there was a race between a snake and a bird at the time that humans were being created. If the bird won, humans, like birds, would have a specific lifetime. In other words, they wouldn't be eternal. If the snake won, then people like snakes would have an eternal life, because of course the observation was that snakes shed their skins and never died. The race was won by the bird, and from that point on, ever after, people like birds had a predicted lifespan. This piece is one of our oldest pieces in the exhibit, and again, understand that when we talk about old pieces coming out of New Guinea, the collections were really made to the large extent following the Second World War. So this piece is a piece that was made at about that moment in time, at about the time of the Second World War. It's an ancestor mask. It's very dense hard wood, which today is not the type of wood that is being carved with. So this piece is a significant piece because it dates back about 60, 70 years in time. This piece is a Karawari cult hook. And these pieces were carved, they're actually like an X-ray piece. In other words, you get this dimensionality. There's a certain influence of this X-ray type of art, probably from Australia. But these pieces were used in ceremonies, for instance, in anticipating a successful hunt. This type of a piece would be brought out as a piece that would be utilized in the ceremonies preceding one of those hunt type of events. There are a few pieces created in New Guinea, like the piece that adorns the gable of the roof of this men's hut that we built. This is another piece that's created on bark. So it's a bark painting where the trees have had the bark removed, and then, you know, it's a geometricized design that's created on it. This is an emblem piece, and it's a piece that again would be most frequently exhibited in the men's huts. The number of instruments that exist in New Guinea tribal societies, you know, in their traditional societies, really would involve drums, both this type of a drum, which is an hourglass type of a drum. This is an asmat piece. In this case, the head of the drum is a lizard skin. One of the things that is particularly unique about these is that to get different tonal qualities out of the drums, they actually would have pitch that they would have little blobs of, either that they would store in the base of the drum. In the case of this drum, they're actually storing it right here on the side of the drum, and they would, you know, soften it by rubbing it, something like chewing gum, and stick bits of it on the drum head, which would change the tonal quality while they played it. So they would either be removing or adding pieces of this pitch to the drum. Again, this has a bird image. The bird is just a repetitive image that you find with these pieces. This is a Mindia figure, which is produced for part of the Yam ceremonies that are conducted by the people. The Yam ceremonies are some of the most sacred ceremonies within New Guinea society, because the yam itself is one of the most critical staples of the people's diet. So there are special yams that are grown that are celebrating this ceremony that sometimes We think of yams the size of a sweet potato, or maybe a little bit larger. Some of these yams can get up to a meter or more in length. So there are significant crops that are grown. There's special yam that's used for these ceremonial celebrations. This piece is an old billum hook, which is used to suspend foodstuffs from the men's huts, and what it does, they would weave a basketry fiber type of bag that would be looped over this hook. And then these are suspended from the high ceilings. They actually are protecting foodstuffs that are stored because they're rodents, rats, and so on in the roof thatch of the huts, and so it's one of the best ways to protect their foodstuffs from being gotten into by the rodents. But again, every part of these pieces, this has shell inset for eyes. The pigment that is used is lime for white, black is soot, and the various oranges and yellows and browns and so on are iron ochre. This is a shield structure. It's a gopi board. This particular piece is from the Papuan Gulf. And you can see that the design motifs as you go from region to region within the art area of New Guinea, you get different design motifs, which is one of the things that makes the art products that are created throughout the Sepik River and off the Sepik River in New Guinea some of the most striking in the world. This is a very geometricized pattern. It's carved in relief and then painted again with iron ochres, lime, and soot. This is a house board, and again, it's one of the pieces that generally would be exhibited within the men's house on the rafters or on the walls. Again, it's a ceremonial piece, highly geometricized. This is from the April River area. And again, there are pieces. The April River zone of New Guinea has a very distinct treatment of their pieces. This is a very nicely adorned example of a lime container. Lime was stored in these types of containers and then mixed with the juice of the betel nut, which is something that was chewed almost ubiquitously in New Guinea. The betel nut is a mild astringent, and it probably gives you the effect of very, very strong coffee. So it's something that the people utilized, and these lime containers became very, very intricately adorned because it was but again, everything has some art attached to it. So something as utilitarian as a container in which lime was stored becomes heavily adorned and then brought out. Particularly something like this piece would be brought out during ceremonial times. This is a ancestor mask. It's from the Angaram village. The Angaram pieces are particularly recognizable. One of the things this image has as part of it is a bat image that's sitting on the head of the ancestor figure. And then the other thing that you find is because of the deep mythology within and throughout New Guinea of the race between the bird and the snake, the people see themselves, since the bird won, as imaging and distorting the nasal area to elongate it to create a beak-like effect, so that many of the ancestor pieces are, adorned with this beak-like extension of the nasal area.